Hello and welcome to Conversation Corner. This video is going to be quite interesting. It's a video that is going to be very helpful for people who identify themselves as introverts and who believe that their main problem is overthinking. Now, the tool that I'm going to mention that can help you combat overthinking is called meditation, right? And I just read about Vipassana meditation, and I want to share the importance of practicing this type of meditation with you. Please bear in mind this is my subjective experience of a session I just had of sitting still for at least an hour. Now, the reason most people who identify themselves as introverts feel huge amount of anxiety or stress or depression is that thoughts are always running in their mind at a huge speed. So thoughts keep coming and going, and what we don't realize is that most thoughts we have during the day are repetitive thoughts. They are thoughts that we had the day before or 3 days before or 4 days before. Now the point of thinking is to tackle a problem and to bring a solution to it. Thinking is not an activity that we need to take part in when there is no immediate problem to be solved. If you want to reduce your stress or your anxiety or your obsessive compulsive thoughts, you need to live in perception. So let's say you were to cross a road at one point in time, right? You can't afford to be thinking of something else because you have to pay attention to any car that is coming on the way. If you are lost in thought, the car that comes on your way can hit you and you can get hurt. So, what Vipassana meditation basically serves as purpose is it makes you aware of the thoughts you are having. Now, there is no obligation to control your thoughts. You just have to see the thoughts that you're having, and you need to be aware of your breath. Now, the point of being aware of your breath is to bring you back to reality. Now, the moment people say be aware of your thoughts, the reason this is very hard for people to do is the moment they have a thought, they get identified with it and then they go down that rabbit hole. So, let's say they were meditating and they had a thought about an exam that is going to take place in a week's time. So instead of just observing that thought of the exam, now they started thinking about how they'll perform in the exam. They started thinking about how tough the exam will be, etc. etc. So it's not easy to observe your thoughts without getting absorbed into them, right? This is like going close to a black hole and then being sucked into it. So thoughts have such a strong effect on us as introverts because we are unable to observe them. Anytime we start having a thought, we get completely identified with it and then we start pondering on that. So let's say we had a thought of a restaurant we went to last week. Instead of just observing that yes, that's a thought that I had and now let it pass, we get sucked into that thought and now we start remembering what we ordered. We start remembering the taste of the food that was there. So what's happening is, instead of trying to just observe your thoughts, is each time a thought is taking place in your mind, you're getting sucked into that. The whole point of paying attention to your breath is to pull you back from that scenario and bring you back into perception. Perception is your tool for staying away from the whole world of thoughts, that lets you pay attention to what's happening in your immediate environment. And which is why, as you practice Vipassana meditation, you'll be paying attention to your breath. Now, what I did was also not completely accurate, because even when you pay attention to your breath, you're not supposed to breathe consciously. You're supposed to observe your breath as it comes and goes. But I agree, this is easier said than done. When you're starting Vipassana meditation for possibly the first time, the moment you become conscious of your breath is where you start consciously breathing, and that beats the whole point. So, when you go into meditation first, keep in mind that you won't have a 100% success rate. The moment you start having thoughts is when you'll start identifying with those thoughts. Okay, like let's say you met a relative last week and this is the thought that popped into your head. Now you won't let that thought pass by and then just be aware of your breath. You'll start remembering the conversations you had, you'll start remembering the places you went to, and so on and so forth. Things will take place and you'll find yourself distracted. Be aware that this is completely normal when you get started with meditation, and as and when time passes, you'll reach certain stages for, let's say, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and sometimes even if you reach a minute, that's awesome, where you'll be left with no thought. At this point in time, your mind will be begging to identify with something. Now, since you're sitting still and you're not doing any activity, that is, you are not reading, you are not listening to music, you are not watching anything, you're not tasting anything, and you're not smelling anything, your mind wants to latch on to something really, really bad. And this is where the test comes of just being able to sit still. So the moment you do that, and you can practice this for a while, you'll enter a stage where you'll feel a certain amount of bliss for a very short period of time. And this bliss is different from all the other kinds of bliss you can experience, because all the other kinds of bliss you do experience are sense perceptions, right? You smelled something good, you tasted something nice, you read an interesting book because you were paying attention to the words, or you listened to some amazing music. So the bliss you feel when your senses go outwards is not the same kind of bliss you feel when your senses are turned inwards. In Vipassana meditation, you sit down cross legged, you close your eyes, and you just observe your thoughts. When you reach a stage where thoughts don't penetrate your mind for a certain while, that is when you start experiencing the bliss of just being there. So it's not that you're doing something that is giving you this amazing sensation of bliss. And I agree it's short lived, but that momentary bliss that you experience comes from simply being and not doing anything. That comes not from your mind, that comes from your mind being dissolved. And it's a very wonderful experience that cannot be completely put in words, because it's something to be practiced and to be experienced subjectively. So, next time you find yourself looking for a way to meditate, I suggest you look into Vipassana meditation. This is different from all other techniques of meditation, because all other techniques of meditation place stress on something to do. In Vipassana meditation, there's nothing to do. You're just observing things as they come and go. And I do agree that the difficulty or the challenge in observing your thoughts is being identified with your thoughts and being sucked into them, which is why there is a stress on being aware of your breath. Remember, it's not breathing. You're not required to consciously breathe. You're just required to be aware of your breath in order to bring you back from the world of thoughts. So, as and when you practice this, you soon reach a stage in your meditation where you experience a certain amount of bliss for a very, very short while, and then you feel a certain sense of calm. Now, once you do that, you realize that most of the thoughts you're having are reinforcing who you are. Just like you take a nail and a hammer, and the stronger you hammer the nail in, the harder the object is going to be fixed to the wall, right? So, currently, your personality is completely fixed, and it's really hard to break out of who you are, because each time you have a thought and you identify with the thought, you are reinforcing who you are. So let's say you say something like, I'm not really good at this. So the thought reinforces itself and it keeps building on itself, and very soon you abstain from that activity you were supposed to do and you were not supposed to ignore. On the contrary, if you say that I'm really good at this and you keep reinforcing that in yourself, you may reach a stage where you have some certain challenge and difficulties. And because you've kept telling yourself, I'm good at this, and because reality shows that it's not as easy as you think, that's also a situation where you break down. So, the whole point of Vipassana meditation is to make you aware of the thoughts you're having so that you'll be equipped to not identify with them. The moment you disassociate from your thoughts is when you can start constructing a new personality, and it's a moment where you can drop your old habits and try and become something new. I agree, this is much easier said than done, which is why this requires practice on a continual basis. I did a meditation session for an hour, and during that meditation session, it was not easy to sit cross legged the whole time, which is why I had to move a little from time to time. Try and avoid laying flat on the bed because you might be induced into sleeping. So try and sit cross-legged if you can, with your spine straight, and then see how this works out for you. It worked out really fine for me. I became more aware of the repetitive thoughts I was having. So one of the big benefits of this kind of meditation is the moment you have a thought which is unnecessary, the moment you're going about in your daily life, you don't require to really think about something, right? You need to think about something when there's a problem at hand that needs to be solved, or you need to think about something as a remembrance for something to do. In terms of an alarm, let's say at 11 o'clock you remembered that you had to go and send your clothes for ironing, so that's when thought was necessary. But when thought does not result in performing any activity that needs to be done or solving a problem that needs to be solved, you do not need to think. The moment you're thinking where thinking serves no purpose, you're increasing your anxiety and you're becoming more neurotic. And of course, you're reinforcing the personality of who you are. So try observing yourself through Vipassana meditation and then see the benefits of this. And if you find that this really did benefit you, leave a comment for others to view the same. Thank you so much.